Okay, so welcome back to part 2, which is where we're going to put the brown and black paint on the whole body, to be truthful, and then take it off. So I'm going to start with model colour, and it's number 70939, and it's smoke. And I'm just going to spray that on using my Iowata spray gun. Turn the booth on, and off we go. Hopefully you can see what I'm doing here. Don't worry about how it goes on, because like I say, it's all going to come off. As you can see, it's just going on the inside. I'm not being careful, I'm just literally spraying it everywhere, down the panel sides, trying to hit everything underneath. Reasonable good first coat, so I'm just going to go and do the second one. As you can see, I'm not doing anything special, just nice flowing strokes down and up the wagon, and on the inside as well, as you hopefully you can see, just going on. And I've got plenty left in the pot, so I'm just going to go back over this one. I say I'm not bothered about how thick it's on, because like I say, it's nearly all going to come off, and don't worry about that. You can maybe see how thick that's gone on. That'll set, and that's not a problem. So we'll do this and all down there. Missed a bit there. Go on the inside again. Again, don't worry about it going everywhere at this stage. And I'm going to pop that on top there, because then it's going to dry for a minute or two while I prepare the black. Okay, so now I'm going to go over it with the black again. Hopefully you can see that it's a model colour AV Vallejo black paint, nicely mixed up. And you can see hopefully that this hasn't dried, so I'm following straight on with it. Doesn't really matter, because it's just going to get all mixed up. And hopefully here we go, nice black coating going on. Doesn't matter how thick, how thin. I'm going to do it on the inside, underneath, look. And again, it's nothing to worry about, because this is going to come off. So you can see that it's just going on nice and thick. But what it's doing, it's giving the wagon several layers. There, I think that's enough. Both wagons. Maybe a bit more there. And then in a second, I'm just going to go over the top of that with another brown, but we'll leave that to dry. You can see how wet that is for a minute or two. Okay, for the last coat of that, I'm just going over with a model colour Vallejo, and it's German black brown. You find a lot of the model colour Vallejo ones are actually for military modelling, but to be truthful, they work just as well for railway modelling. So you can see that's still quite wet, but I'm just going to go over and put another coat of this black brown, which you'll probably not be able to tell, but now it's got several coats on. Again, don't worry about spotting, because it's all going to come off. You can see how that's run around there, but again, it's not a problem, because by the time I take a cotton bud to it, you will not see. So there you go, you can see it's gone from white to a mixture of dirty browns and blacks. And I've covered most of that, as you can see. drying quite nicely. So the next stage is to wash my brush out, and then we'll start taking some of the paint off. Okay, so now I've got it all sprayed brown, both of them as we showed, and black. We're going to move on to the next stage of removing that to try and start to make it look a little bit more like one of these. So all I need for this is some airbrush thinner. Again, that's Vallejo airbrush thinner. I find that works best with the Vallejo paint. A milk bottle top and some cotton buds. So all I'm going to do is just put a little bit of that in there, put it to one side, and I'm just going to dab that in there just to get a little bit on. And what we're going to do, we're just going to work. You can see the paint's coming off. You see? And don't be worried about taking too much paint off, because when it dries, it really dries nicely and it gives that grimy look. The one thing I would say that you have to do though is keep swapping the ends over and keep your cotton bud wet, because if you don't keep your cotton bud wet, you're going to end up with fibres, which can be an absolute pain in the neck to get rid of. So you can see, and by doing this, what this does is it allows the dirt, the paint, whatever you want to call it, to go into all the bits that you would normally see it going into. So look, I'm just doing that there, just wiping it off. As you can tell, I'm not a video man and a cameraman, and it's blooming hard to keep doing this while I'm trying to watch the screen so you can see what I'm doing. So apologies if it's not looking great. So I'm going to get rid of that one, just put it in the pot, start on another one on the other side, and all I'm doing is just downward gentle motions just to get it off. As you can see, it's coming off really, really nicely. And again, doesn't matter how much you take off, because it'll help the weathering. I'm just going to take this off actually here and start to hold this so I can rub it better. And don't be afraid of rubbing. And you can see, look, keep your cotton bud wet. You could wet it all before you do it to help it coming off. And it's going there, look, it's going there. You can use different motions on it, but as you can see, it's gone from being completely covered and get rid of that. You can use a brush to do this as well, and I'll show you it being done with a brush as well. But it's just a case of just gently working into the nuts and crannies with plenty of thinners. Mr. Panel there, you can see it's coming off quite nicely. Can you see that? So it's already starting to look quite aged, and that's just really simple to do, and it's just a mixture, and it just gets that layer of dirt on the wagon as you would want it, because like I say, it tends to run into whichever nook and cranny is available. Then I'm going to just do the inside as well. Again, that's not too bad, because most of the inside on these wagons are going to be rust, so I'm just doing it in a bit of a slightly different way, a little bit more haphazardly, but I'm going to leave it at that. I'm going to let that dry. Oops, Mr. Panel there, just do that. Again, it's taste on how you want as much or as little to show through. And always remember, no two wagons are ever the same, and even if you over weather these, you'll probably find a picture of something like that, so don't be scared to have a go. there's too many people saying it wouldn't be like that in real life. Well, in fact, you could probably find that there is a picture of it in real life like that. So I'm going to let that dry, and we'll move on to the next stage shortly, which will be starting the rusting process. That'll be stage 3. On the wagon which I'm about to show you, I'm also going to use a brush. You can see it's an old tried and tested brush from Boys, £5.35. Let me know. And again, dipping it in the thinners, and you can see a lot less work's needed. But then what I do is I still just go over. Again, it's personal choice. It looks dirty, and again, I'm just doing that. Downward motions, crossward motion, doesn't really matter. But I'm just removing some of the excess, because there is a lot of excess on that by doing that and dipping it in. But again, it still looks dirty, and it'll dry quite nicely, I think. I'm going to dip it back in. I'm just going to dry it down a bit. Get my cotton bud again. I'm going to go over it. I'm using the cotton bud on there just because it's damp and it's there. But you can see the general idea. And I'm just going to use the cotton bud on the inside because it's wet. And again, all I'm doing on the inside is just making it a right hodgepodge. Doesn't matter how it looks inside at the moment. Doesn't matter how it looks outside, because again, we're going to be covering a lot of it to get it to where we want it to be. Don't worry if you get bits like that, because the Vallejo thinners you can just dab on, brush off and carry on. And if you're not happy with what you've done, you can soon strip the paint off again and start again. But the only way you're going to do it is by trial and error and having a go. Don't be afraid to have a go. And again, just rubbing that down. Sorry if this is boring. I would sing, but it's not raining and I don't want it to rain, and the wife's out with the dogs, and if I sung and it rained, I'd be in bother. Okay, so I'm going to put that down there and let that dry. You can see the two distinct differences in the finishes, one with brush and one using a cotton bud. Both perfectly acceptable, just different options that you have. Right, on to stage 3 shortly.